stands out among cities, not just in Ohio, as Eric already said, but across the nation, in its efforts to ensure that children are receiving the best educational option, regardless of delivery model. Nicole Graves is currently the interim principal at Central Academy, a charter school in Toledo, Ohio. Before this position, Nicole was an outstanding charter school teacher, receiving 2 School Teacher of the Year awards in 2013 and 2014. She is a graduate of the University of Toledo and holds a bachelor's degree in early childhood education and a master's in curriculum and instruction. Please welcome Nicole Graves.
Thank you. Good morning. My technology today. When Adrianne asked me to speak at this event about my experience at teaching in a charter school, I decided you needed to know a little bit about me as a student and why I enjoy and love my job so much today. I hated school as a kid. Anybody else feel that way? I've learned that this is a teacher's biggest struggle, getting kids to enjoy learning. I came from a family where my mother was a teacher, and my older sister was one of those students who excelled at everything she did without putting any effort into it. She had one of those excellent photographic memories where she could look at it once and it stuck with her until this day. I, however, did not get that photographic memory. Excuse me. I had to work extra hard to study, to prepare for those tests. I had to read through things several times in order to make sure that I understood what I was reading. And don't get me started on round robin reading. I was that child who counted how many people were ahead of me and read it over and counted the paragraphs and read it over and over again in my head to make sure that I didn't stumble like I'm doing right now in front of all of you or in front of my entire class. To me, school was boring. And since I was a stubborn young lady who didn't like to do things that bored me, getting the motivation to do my work and get good grades was not always at the top of my list. But luckily for me, I had a strong support system at home that pushed me to reach my full potential, even if they had to drag me kicking and screaming to the finish line. So why, if this environment was so stressful for me, would I decide to make this my career? Well, after changing my major 5 times in college, I went back to what I knew and loved, and that was kids. I worked a good majority of my childhood and adolescence in daycares and babysitting and summer camps and after-school programs helping with homework. And I heard the same thing from these kids. I hate school. School is boring, and I just don't get it. These comments took me right back to my childhood and how I felt as a student. At that point, deciding my major was clear. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to change children's perspective on education. Learning should be fun, not a chore that we dread doing every day. So after working hard for 4 years, I graduated with my degree in early childhood education and found myself looking for a teaching job when there were not many to be had. When I thought all hope was lost, I got a call back from an interview the day before school was going to start, asking me if I would be interested in teaching 2nd grade at a charter school that was starting in Toledo. At this time, I knew very little about charter schools, other than they wanted to give me a job, and I was going to take it. The only problem was it was 5 o'clock the night before school was going to start. Luckily for me, my supportive mother and soon-to-be husband helped me set up for my first day. Needless to say, no one could prepare me for some of the experiences I would face on this first day, or even the experiences I would experience over the next 8 years. Very quickly, I realized charter schools had a niche, and our niche was inquiry-based learning and Arabic as a foreign language. Well, inquiry-based learning fit very well into my plan of making education fun, but Arabic as a foreign language kind of threw me for a loop. As a brand new teacher starting out, let me tell you how frightened I was to have a parent drop off their son to my door and tell me that he spoke absolutely no English. Let me tell you how much they teach you about ESL students in college. Not very much. Now here I was with this little boy who was scared to death, and his teacher now scared to death. How do I teach someone I can't communicate with? Well, here's where Arabic as a foreign language really turned out to be an asset. Not only did I have teachers in my building who could translate for my non-English speaking student, but I also had students in my classroom who spoke English, but who also spoke Arabic, Who could help me communicate with this little boy? Very quickly, I realized that the dynamics of our school was an asset to those students who did not know English, and that it drew them to our building for learning. Even those students who knew English and only some Arabic, the parents brought them so that they would not lose their identity and so that they could communicate with their relatives as they went back overseas. I realized that I was starting to hear more and more was true. The United States, which was once thought of as a melting pot, really had turned into a tossed salad. And our building was prime example with over 30 different countries represented. Once I got over my fear of teaching ESL students, I could really focus on what my initial goal was, making learning fun. Growing up, I spent a good majority of my life at a dance studio. Dance was an outlet for me. Movement and music was something that soothed me and helped me to think, and also was something that was fun and enjoyable to do. If I had the ability to choose my school growing up, I probably would have picked a school for the arts. If I could put something to movement or dance, I knew I would remember it and I could pass the test. This is why if you ever step foot in my classroom, you would find my kids starting their day listening to music, getting their brains working with yoga, and coming up with different movements and chants to remember the difference between something like a numerator and a denominator. You would also find that instead of just reading from a textbook to learn about fossils and the job of a paleontologist, you would find the zoo in my classroom showing my students real fossils, or my class would be digging up their own fossils on a field trip to Fossil Park. Working at a charter school allowed me to be creative with my teaching, which in turn helped me to fulfill my dream of making learning fun. What an amazing difference school choice has made in my life as an adult. I wish I could have been as lucky as the students are today, with being able to choose a school that is just right for them. I know I would have loved school and learning as much as I do today.